Hey, and welcome to the Stories Unveiled podcast, where we talk about the purpose in every story and how to live in freedom from your past. I'm your host, Ashley Sears, and each episode you're invited into a conversation about real life between me and a friend. I believe if an issue is addressed in the Bible, then it's important to create a safe and supportive space to discuss it. While some of these conversations are not easy, I do believe they are worth it. If you like what you hear, please visit our ministry at storiesunveiledconference.com. Thank you for joining today. You are listening to episode 8 of the Stories Unveiled podcast. My name is Ashley Sears, and I'm honored to be here with you. For this conversation, I was able to have my friend Lauren Church join me. We had the opportunity to chat about her business and life principles that have been strengthened through scary and unexpected life injuries and medical struggles. Lauren is a wife, mom, and small business owner. Lauren and her husband, Jeff, own and operate Little Light Artisans, which sells amazing handcrafted jewelry and kitchenware that they create completely by hand. Lauren loves Jesus and has built their business on spreading his gospel. Take a listen to this conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Lauren, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're just going to jump right in. And I want to first address the most current amazing thing that you are working on. You and your husband, Jeff, you own a small business near Boise. Is that correct?
Yes, we're actually out in Parma. So it's about 45 minutes away, but yeah, near Boise and originally from Boise, so.
Awesome. You make the most beautiful handcrafted earrings, and you recently started making kitchenware. Maybe you've been doing kitchenware. I don't know. I'm going to ask you about all that in just a moment. But there's some other things that you do too. Can you just tell me what you guys make, how y'all started, and who does what in your business?
Yeah, of course. So let's see, back in 2020, we started Little Light Artisans and started with earrings. So I'll just say we make mostly jewelry, earrings, necklaces, but then we've also branched out into kitchenware. Like you said, we do just whole kitchen sets, like spoon sets, spatulas.
Wood, right?
Yes.
They're all wood.
Yes, all handmade and all gorgeous wood. Like they're all different, and we love. That's what my husband loves the most, probably, is picking out all the different, and they start out huge wood pieces, you know, and then gets them down to these amazing little things.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, we do magnets and, we also some artwork, ocean art with resin and a whole bunch of different things. But how we started, so he, started out making cutting boards, actually.
Okay.
And originally we started with, it was called Bread and Fish Woodworks. And so I was doing the cutting board thing and then thought, well, what are we going to do with these cut off scrap pieces that are just going to go in the trash anyway? Right. What can we make with those that we don't have to completely waste them? And so that's how we started out, was just the laminated wood together, making those into earrings. And they were so popular.
Yeah.
We just branched out from there, and now we do wood and resin jewelry mostly. No cutting boards anymore because the jewelry was just so popular.
No cutting boards.
And so many people make cutting boards. So we kind of wanted to do our own, something that not a lot of people were doing. So
that's awesome. Now I'm just because nobody can see you, you're wearing a pair of your earrings and they're beautiful. But these aren't just like standard, they're not like hand stamped or, whatever. They're all different like shapes and sizes and really cool detail. Like I think you guys have some Monstera leaf earrings. They're just absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a lot of fun playing around with different shapes that we're going to come up with. And one of the number one comments we get is how lightweight they are.
They are. I know this firsthand.
Yeah, It always surprises people because there's a lot of them are pretty substantial, but even the heavier one, the bigger ones aren't very heavy. So people love that.
I think I have one of your largest beach ones, like the ocean ones that are just gorgeous, and they're so lightweight. So where can people find and shop you and Jeff and Little Light Artisans?
So we have our own website. It's littlelightartisans.com. And where you can kind of keep up with what we're doing is on Instagram. And it's just at Little Light Artisans. That's where you can find all of our things, because we post family stuff, and just we have a lot of fun just kind of sharing our lives and all the fun things we make.
Yeah. That will all be linked in the description below of this podcast. So if you're listening, you can go down and all those links will be live there. But tell me, so you said that's Jeff's favorite thing to do is the woodworking piece. So what are your guys' kind of roles? And you said you started in 2020. Tell me a little bit about kind of that transition and what you guys were doing before.
Yeah, so before, he just had a regular 9-to-5 job. And then when we moved out, we kind of moved out to the country. Yeah. And that was all new for me, but that was where he was from. So he was just at home out there. But while we were, at the time, temporarily staying in his grandma's old farmhouse that was vacant, that's when he decided to start woodworking. So started in his grandpa's garage, which was really neat. Yeah. And just kind of transitioned to life out there, quit his job in Boise, and we were blessed with an opportunity out in Wilder, Parma area. Mm-hmm. And so he does, all the cutting and sanding and all that. And then what I do is polishing, mm-hmm. putting them all together, and kind of doing all the posting and sharing and everything.
All the marketing. Yeah. And all of that. And I see sometimes on your Instagram stories, your kids help package, and it's kind of a family affair, isn't it? It
is, yeah. They love to help, and we're moving more and more that way as they get more capable, and putting the little hardware together is kind of a tedious thing, but our daughter's getting pretty into that. So
that's awesome. That's amazing. Well, I'm going to be honest. Your life seems like a bit of a dream for most people. Your husband working in the shop, and you running the business from home, you guys being able to spend a lot of time together. You stay at home with your kids. You homeschool. Is that correct?
I do, yeah.
You have land with room to roam, kind of living in the country. It sounds like you have an amazing church community we'll talk a little bit more about too, but it just seems pretty perfect. But like with everything else, we know that there is always more depth to people and their stories. So the reality of life is that it's not void of struggles. So I would love for you to share just a little bit about your childhood, and something happened when you were 10 years old. Would mm-hmm. you just tell me about that?
Yeah, so when I was 10, and I have one sister, she was 8 years old at the time, we had gone on a family trip, a very impromptu trip to a funeral in California. Okay. My dad's uncle. So we made the trip. That was all fine. But on the way home, we were just about 15 minutes from home, just on the interstate. It was late at night. It had been raining. And at the time, there were some pretty bad ruts in the road. Mm-hmm. So standing water. And we ended up hydroplaning off the side of the road. There was no guardrail, so we just went straight into the ditch, and we rolled end over end 3 times. I was asleep at the time, so I don't remember any of this whatsoever. Wow. But it was just my dad driving, my little sister in the front seat, and me and my mom in the back. And she did not have a seatbelt on.
Your sister?
My mom.
Oh, well, your mom.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing, actually. So about 15 minutes before it happened, my mom said, "Does Jackie have her seatbelt on?" That's my sister. And she didn't. Oh. I don't know why she didn't, but they thankfully buckled her in the front with the shoulder belt and everything. This was an old Plymouth van. Okay. And I'm just so thankful that they did, because she would not have made it. Yeah. There's no way. But I was in the back, and I only had a lap belt on. Okay. So when we were flipping, at some point, my mom and I were both ejected out of the vehicle.
So that lap belt did not hold you in?
Did not. So yeah, the moral of the story is always wear your shoulder belt, for sure.
Good to know.
Yeah. So at some point we were ejected, and I've just always thought back to that moment where, for my dad, when we landed and he turns around, we landed right side up, turns around, and we're just gone.
You're just not in the van anymore. Yeah. Either one of you.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
It's just, I always think back, like, what would that have been like? So anyway, he had to get out and look for us, and
So he had to get out after flipping and search for you
Yeah,
guys.
he was okay, thankfully. He had a black eye, but very minor injury, and my sister was okay. But ended up, she rode in a police car to the hospital, and my mom and I were taken in separate ambulances. And I think my dad was with one of us, I don't know. But I was just completely unconscious. Like I said, I was asleep when it happened. So amazingly, I did not break a single bone.
That's incredible. Is it because you were asleep?
Yeah, I think just my muscles were not tensed. I wasn't bracing for impact. I was just in a deep sleep. So thank the Lord. I had a head injury.
Okay.
But that was the extent of my injuries. And my mom, on the other hand, she braced for impact. Like she saw it coming, and she ended up with 31 broken bones, including multiple vertebrae in her neck and back.
Oh my gosh.
She was in really rough shape, punctured a lung, broken collarbone. So, when we were in the hospital, I was in for 12 days. She was in for 17 days. But miraculously, we made it. And, she came home with a hospital bed at our house. And so she had a really rough go. And, there was nerve damage. So it changed our whole lives.
Yeah.
My sister and I had to grow up really fast because she couldn't do what she used to do for us, 10 and 8 at the time.
And your dad was working, I'm assuming?
He was working, and he ended up going through some depression and anxiety, and I think he just blamed himself for what happened, even though it wasn't his fault.
No, of course not.
But it's just kind of the natural thing to do. So it was a rough time for sure, but the blessing out of that is it brought my parents closer to the Lord. Beforehand, we didn't go to church much, and things kind of changed after that. I think it was just thankful to be alive, and wanting to, get to know God more that brought us through that.
Yeah, when you're faced with your own mortality or your family's mortality, we tend to seek purpose and figure out, well, what's going to happen to me after I die, because we become acutely aware that we are not here forever. And
right.
So that's amazing. So you guys started going to church and kind of found the Lord. Your parents kind of started leading that way, I guess, raising you and your sister like that. Yeah,
it changed a lot, really, and I'm so thankful for it.
That's awesome. So this was when you were 10. Couple years go by after this accident. I don't know how long it took your mom to fully recover from that, but I'm assuming after a couple years, you guys were on the mend and kind of, rebuilding life or whatever back to normal. You had kind of a health issue come up. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when I was 12, I noticed some pitting edema on one of my legs.
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So, I was just I was practicing my flute actually, and had just had my leg up and set the flute on my leg, just kind of in a resting position. And then when I took it away, it was so pitting. I don't know how to explain it exactly. Just when your legs are swollen, but they're so swollen that whatever, a finger pressed on there or whatever leaves the imprint.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So my mom was concerned, obviously, and got me into a doctor. And I ended up being diagnosed with primary lymphedema, which a lot of people haven't even heard of before.
No,
but
I hadn't.
It's your lymphatic vessels don't function properly. Okay. Don't pump the lymph fluid.
Okay.
Whether some people have it in their arms, some people have it in their legs, but the reason they called it primary is because they thought I must have been born with it, because there was no other. A lot of people will get lymphedema if they get lymph nodes removed, in their armpit, for breast cancer surgery. Yeah. And when they remove lymph nodes. Okay. But that wasn't the case with me. It just kind of started happening.
I mean, you were young.
Yeah. The only other thing, from when I was a kid, that might have indicated some issue with that was that I would bruise very easily, and they would stay for a long time too. So, but yeah, I ended up seeing a lymphedema therapist and learning special massage of how to get the fluid out of there.
Wow, interesting.
Started wearing compression hose. And now I wear like full pantyhose. They go all the way up, and I have to pull them on with rubber gloves because they're so thick and hard to get on.
Oh my goodness.
Just the highest compression that they go.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. So something that you were diagnosed with that kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, the symptoms kind of for you just kind of popped up.
Yeah, I think it just started in puberty. Like things changed, and all of a sudden that symptom was there.
This just happened. And now you deal with, and probably will for the rest of your life?
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually looking into a vein doctor, seeing a vein doctor soon, because there's an issue with my my blood vessels not pumping the blood up properly. So, and it's who's to say if, I don't even know 100% if it is lymphedema or just the blood thing. But either way, I have my legs swell. Yeah. And it's the same treatment. So, but when I meet with a vein doctor, I think I'll try to look into if there's any other options or surgery down the road or something. But as far as I know, it'll just be like this.
So you deal with this long-term, I don't even know if it's not necessarily an illness, but this long-term condition, we'll say, that now you've been dealing with for several years. I want to fast forward to 2009. That's the year you got married, right? You met your husband, Jeff. Before that, you met your husband before that, but I know you got married in 2009. Is that correct? So, real quick, just because it's a really cute story, how did you and Jeff meet, and how did he propose and all of that? You told me, and it's pretty adorable.
Thanks. Yeah. So, we met in 2005, and it was on MySpace, actually.
You're kind of dating yourself.
I know, I am. Yeah, I know. Kidding. So it was that. Yeah, the top 8 friends and all that, haven't been in that world for so long. But yeah, it was on MySpace, and it was actually because of mutual friends on there. Okay. And the cool thing was he saw on my profile something about how you can have fun without partying or something like that. And so he's like, oh, that's because he was a Christian guy and straight-laced and was looking for somebody similar, so he saw that and reached out to me. And so we actually knew, so he went to college with some guys that I went to church with. Okay. And then he was looking for a church to attend in the Boise area. He had moved from Caldwell to Boise and just wanted a church. And so I invited him, and that's where we actually met. And dated for 3.5 years, actually.
And how old were you?
When we met, I was 19.
Okay, and then you dated for 3.5 years.
Yeah, and so
you were ready for.
I was
for a ring.
I was. Yeah, I was starting to get a little impatient and made that known in a nice way. Yeah. And so eventually he decided he was ready. It's just he takes a long time to make decisions, and
even still.
Yes, for anything, small and big, but it's a blessing and a curse sometimes.
Absolutely, I get that.
But how we, it is really cute how he proposed. So we had gone to a concert in Seattle a couple years prior to him proposing and really loved the Paramount Theater. Okay. This old historical theater in Seattle that's still open, and they have concerts there. So we had planned to go to Seattle for a baseball game, just fly in for the day. And this was, a really spontaneous thing, not typical that we would do. But that part I did know about, that we were going to do that. And it was a Sunday morning when we flew in. And so we decided we'd walk around Seattle and went to the Paramount Theater. We just thought, we'll just go see if it's even open. Probably not. I think we looked online and it wasn't. But we go anyway and knock on the door, and it was locked, it was closed. But somebody comes up to the door and they're like, oh, hi, were you looking for something? And we just said that we wanted to look around if possible. And amazingly, they're like, yeah, come on in. We're just cleaning. And that was, kind of strange to me. And come to find out that Jeff had been emailing them for months. Like the whole janitorial staff knew we were coming. So
Because he knew it would be closed.
yeah, he knew it was closed, and somehow he, just talked them into letting us walk around. So I didn't know that was part of the plan or anything, but
You just thought, how lucky.
I know. Yeah. I was like, wow, that's really cool. So we go in, walk to one of the mezzanines, and that's where he proposed. So it was really neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then in 2009, you guys ended up getting married. Is that correct?
Yep.
That's so cute. So 2009, you have 2 kids, is that correct? And when were they born?
So Hadley was born in 2012.
Okay.
So she's 10, almost 11. And then Nolan was born in 2015.
Okay.
He just turned 8. So
Okay.
yeah.
So 2012, you were a young mom. You had a baby, little girl. And then in 2013, I think you said around the time Hadley was at 7 months or something like that.
She was actually about 18 months old.
Oh, she was 18 months. Okay. You had another medical scare or issue come up. Will you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I had just gone to my normal OB appointment, just routine yearly exam,
Right.
and she was feeling my neck, and I guess that's something they typically do. I didn't even realize until then, but felt my neck and said that the left side felt kind of full. She said, well, let's do an ultrasound and see if there's anything there. So we did the ultrasound, and there was a node on my left thyroid, the left side. And so she said, well, let's get you in for a needle biopsy.
Yeah.
And
That doesn't sound fun.
no, it wasn't. And just, I think a couple days later was scheduled for that. Went in, and they said, don't worry, about 80% of the time, these are benign. So they just basically told me not to worry. And then it was a couple days before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And we were actually on our way to Life Group with a few people from our church. And we pulled up, parked the car, and I get a call from the doctor right then. And not just the nurse, it was the actual doctor, and it was at 7 o'clock at night or something.
Yeah.
So I thought,
That's a little
this
concerning.
is
I need to
immediately, I
answer.
was like, good news or bad news? Let's see. And he said I had cancer, papillary thyroid cancer. And just hearing that word was shocking.
Not something anybody ever wants to hear.
No. So I was 27 at the time, and it was a shock for sure. So I was scheduled for surgery on December 9th and had my whole thyroid removed.
Your whole thyroid.
Yeah.
Okay.
They took it all, and they also took 10 lymph nodes.
Wow.
So, when going into surgery, I didn't know if they were going to take the whole thing or not, but I guess they did as a precaution.
Yeah.
And they took just 10 lymph nodes to be able to test those and check those for cancer. Thankfully, those were all clear. But ever since then, I've seen an endocrinologist and had to be on a thyroid replacement, hormone replacement. So it changed my life too. And it was hard because I wasn't able to pick Hadley up for, a week after the surgery.
So you have this baby, and then you can't pick her up.
It was rough, yeah.
Oh, man. So it wasn't really one thing after another, but it kind of feels like, especially when things come to your health, like one thing after another. The accident obviously was just that. It was an accident. It wasn't like a health scare, but it still was a medical issue. It was a huge upheaval of your childhood and watching your mom recover, and even you having to recover. I mean, you may not have endured a ton of injuries, but you still had to recover nonetheless. And then, this diagnosis when you were 12, and then cancer, which is kind of seems to be kind of like the end all be all, right? Like if somebody's diagnosed with cancer, like that's kind of one of the worst things that you could be diagnosed with.
Right.
In your case, though, it's worked out. You're cancer-free at this point.
Yeah. So it was 9 years ago now, and luckily it was early stage. They got it all, and I've had no ill effects since then, and just doing well. So it's, doing great now. And I've seen, as like you said, kind of seemed like one thing after the other. But looking back, I mean, I've had such a good, blessed life. And I kind of think back like, wow, yeah, there is quite a few things that have happened to me, but I didn't think of it like that, like, oh,
poor me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so these things have happened. Okay. So maybe like expand on that a little bit. You said there has been a lot that's happened to me, but I don't look back on my life and say like, oh, poor me, or, you don't really think of it that way. Through all of this, you're a Christian and you believe, in Jesus. And you said that, the trajectory of that was changed when you were 10, after that accident in your family, you started going to church and investing your time there. And tell me a little bit about just like kind of your church community maybe now, but even just your walk with the Lord in the sense of, does worry creep up about your health anymore? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, through it all, I kept tried to keep my faith, and not tried to, I did, but it was just, they're scary things, but you just like hold on to what and God is good and he's going to bring you through this. But sorry, what, remind me what you... Oh,
no, you're fine. Just like... during this process of, and maybe you can't necessarily speak as much to when you were 12, that medical diagnosis, but even just the cancer, like, does worry or, anxiousness creep in still, like with your health? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, it absolutely does, from time to time. And just prayer is the main thing.
Yeah.
And actually just pretty recently, like I've had more anxiety about that kind of thing. Just like some tiny thing will be, weird with my body. And I'm like, immediately thinking like maybe I have cancer.
Thinking the worst.
Yeah, thinking the worst. And then I just have to bring it back to God's got this. Like he's brought me this far. And, if there is something, we'll cross that bridge, we've dealt with it before and we can do it again. But just, that constant faith and being in the Word is huge. The days that I start out with reading my Bible are the days that I feel the most grounded in that. So,
yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That's awesome. Well, we live in a social media saturated time. And you don't broadcast your life on social media, but you have a business, and so your business is online, and so you post stories and posts and stuff. And I love how you include your family in that. It's not just all business. Hey, listen, we're selling these things. Your business is with a purpose and with a mission. You always you don't shy away from talking about Jesus. And I've received shipments from you, and so there's a card with Bible verse with a Bible verse on it. And I love your social media platform includes your kids and talks about your faith and even your church. But because we live in such a social media saturated time, the ability to see people's lives is huge now more than ever, and it's easy to see with the click of your screen. It's really easy, I know, for me to kind of play this comparison game between our lives and other people's lives. And what's amazing about your social media presence is that it's always good. There's never anything like, I wonder what Little Light Artisans is going to, have on social media today. It's always good. It's always good updates, whether it's about your family or your new releases or just the really good things that are happening. But I always end the podcast with this question. Even though it literally seems like you're living kind of the American dream, there have been trials along the way. And they might not be huge, and God has gotten you through all of them, but they've been really big, especially in the moment. What would you tell the person that is listening that's maybe struggling with that, wondering, like, what about me, God? Like, everybody seems like they have this, that, or the other on social media, but knowing the reality that that's just not, it's a highlight reel, What advice or wisdom would you tell somebody that's maybe struggling with that?
Yeah, I would... just remind them, like you said, nobody is perfect.
Yeah.
And we're not meant to be either. Right. That's why we need a savior.
Absolutely.
We all fall short of the glory of God. Amen. And I think the whole highlight reel thing is so true because when people share things on their social media, I think of it like if you had a photo album, like an actual photo album, you're not going to put in your hardest days.
Such a good point.
Your worst moments. You don't want to remember those. You're wanting to share or keep and remember the good stuff. Yeah. So I think that's how people look at it when they're sharing their own things. Like you don't want to share the bad stuff. So just remembering that's what people are sharing. It's like their photo album in a way, or their good memories that they want to keep, have on there. Yeah. So I think just having that as a reminder, and then remembering that nobody is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. But God is. And he sent Jesus so that he could be perfect. We don't have to be.
Right. And there's this book that has helped me a lot. It's by Allie Beth Stuckey.
Okay.
And it's called You're Not Enough. And that's okay.
That's amazing.
It's such a relief to me, and I think it should be to a lot of people, to realize that we don't have to live up to perfection or the whole be your best self thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The fact that we're actually called to die to ourselves.
Yep.
And, focus on those biblical principles and live our life that way, instead of like trying to compare ourselves to others and how great others are being, or that's not the standard.
No. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom and just for being vulnerable and sharing your story and just being here on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation on the Stories Unveiled podcast. We would love it if you would leave us a rating or review. If you would like to learn more about Stories Unveiled and our events, go to storiesunveiledconference.com or follow us on Facebook or Instagram at storiesunveiled_. The Stories Unveiled podcast is created in partnership with KTSY and Barefoot Media Ministries. For more encouragement and other podcasts, visit ktsy.org. Have an incredible day and go live unveiled.